You guys ready to jump in? Let's do this.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll start off with Kevin. Kevin, if you don't mind, introducing yourself a little bit and let's jump into lead magnets.
Yeah. It's funny. I had an intro slide at ScaleCon, but I also had like 32 slides in 30 minutes. So I just pulled the intro slide. So I don't even know, like I didn't even say my name. I just went right into it. So I'm Kevin Clune from MSP Growth Hacks. You could go to mspgrowthhacks.com and really indulge in what that is. But I'm here to kind of recap a little bit, I guess, of where we left off with lead magnets at ScaleCon. And now, having done the presentation, it was really about the why you need to use lead magnets, how they can impact, how much you're leaving on the table when you don't use them. That was kind of the big takeaway for a lot of people was that, we talked about how the average conversion rate is like 0.5%. And so that means that 99.5% of people are leaving your website and they're not converting. And so this is just a way to offer them something else in order to creep that number up. This doesn't mean that they're ready to talk, right? It just means that now you can communicate with them directly if you want. And so that's the value of lead magnets. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump right into, can you allow the sharing?
Yep. I think
There you go.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. There was this one slide. Can everybody see that? This is high performing placements. Okay. There was this one slide that I think people asked me about the most, which is, and Taher, this was perfect because you actually brought this up, and this is what you were going to talk about today, right? So how do you actually place these things on your site, and in what capacity, and how do you go about doing it? So I'll kind of just walk through this slide, and then I'll show you some examples, and then maybe we can just do like some questions, or even people can show their sites and I can say, hey, I'd put one there, put one there,
Cool.
So number one, think about this as like sort of a mini funnel that your visitor would experience as they're on your site. And so the very first thing is you want to make sure that the content of the lead magnet that you're promoting is relevant to the content on the page. They're there for the content on the page. They're not there for the lead magnet yet, right? So those things need to directly correlate for that conversion to be highly likely to happen. If it's not irrelevant, then you could still get some conversions, but it's not a natural flow for somebody to say, I'm reading about this. Now I have the option to now grab that, which if there's a correlation, then that makes a lot more sense. And so the places that I always tell MSPs are like perfect for lead magnets. Number one is your industry pages, right? So I know Taher and Steven and everybody and Maddie, they're all working on these like really great vertical specific campaigns. If you have lead magnets from those campaigns, those are perfect to put on the industry pages on your website. So you have a guide for, the legal industry, put it on the legal industry page. Service pages are another decent one. I say decent because depending on how nuanced the service is, it might not always be, it might be difficult, right? But a good example of like, maybe if you had a cybersecurity page and then you had a cyber score lead magnet, which is actually something else we talked about in this session. But,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tyler.
So I love that, but it was like one of the reasons we have lead magnets for a lot of services like cybersecurity, but you're right, like a cyber score is way more impactful. But I remember with VoIP, we just never did one with VoIP because I couldn't in a million years I was like really trying to think of like what lead magnet could we do for VoIP that's exciting enough for someone to download.
I'll give you one right now.
Yeah, please do.
Call path examples, right? Or like so we used to do IVR systems back in the day, right? And that was the whole thing. how do you
Yeah.
design them? How do you, whatever. So
Yes.
like you could do a bunch of it. You could do
Oh, yes.
a sample script where all you do is fill in the blanks, right? And
Oh
then
my
pass it off
God.
to a voice over artist. So like that, don't challenge
See,
me, Tyler. Like,
this is so great. All right. Well, now we're gonna have a VoIP lead magnet
yeah,
on the
there you
site
go.
like next week. Thank you.
There's another new
Oh,
hire
we
for you.
do. All right. Well, we're gonna have another one.
So
Cool.
what I'll say about, so blog articles are probably the number three, right? Everybody probably has like one or two blog articles that are just getting like a random amount of traffic. Like this seems to always happen with MSP websites. It's like you've got this one article, and maybe it's luck and maybe it's whatever, but it's just getting the bulk of the traffic. And sometimes that's relevant traffic, sometimes it's not, but those are a perfect example of maybe whatever the topic is of that article, create sort of, a natural flow of another lead magnet that might be relevant to it. And so if you guys can still see this slide, let's talk about sort of now, how do we do that? So my favorite is always putting the lead magnet directly in the content. And I do this because, the sidebar lead magnets are great. They do work. So, it's better to have them than to not have them, but the conversion is incredibly higher when the content, flows directly into the lead magnet. We just have this thing where we just ignore the sidebar, right? It's just, I personally just, when I read and I'm, if I'm locked in and I'm engaged in the content, the sidebar could have anything. I'm not really looking at it. So always put it directly in the content. And I like to space that out like every 300 to 400 words. I'll show you an example, but how it's perfectly where as you're scrolling down the site, as one's leaving, the next one pops up, right? And so what's funny is I have yet to get to a point of diminishing returns on lead magnets when it seems like as you just keep adding more,
If you don't,
the conversion rate just keeps going higher, right? Now, you can have it to be where there's so many that the bounce rate is higher. That's not a good thing, but it's hard to actually get to that point. If you have, usually the way that happens is there's a flaw somewhere in the logic, and all of a sudden, like a pop-up's coming up too early, or there's like 4 coming up at the same time because the automation wasn't set up right. And so there's usually an issue with that. It's not like an intentional thing, but I would never be afraid that you're going to overdo it with lead magnets unless you legitimately just have make a mistake. So the third on this is the exit intent. And so you can kind of picture now how somebody can experience all of these as they're flowing through your content, right? So they read the article. Maybe they decided, you know what, I'm not going to opt in at that point. The exit intent is sort of the last ditch effort before they leave the site to be able to get them to opt in. And what's great is a lot of these tools will allow you to set these pop-ups on individual pages pretty easily. And so that's how you can sort of connect these dots and say, I'm showing this lead magnet on this page. When they go to leave that page, I want to show that same lead magnet. And those convert really well. Again, as a user, I don't love to experience them, but they're just part of using the internet at this point. Like we all run into these things. You would be surprised at how well they actually perform. So, I would never be concerned that you're going to overdo it unless you're making a mistake and there's like 7 of them firing at the same time. Then you need to figure that out. And then finally, after they leave the site, you still have one more option, and that's retargeting. The example here is retargeting. It's a LinkedIn ad. But you could do this on Facebook. You could do it with Google Ads. You could do it really on any ad platform. They'll have the option. And again, essentially what you're doing is you're building an audience of people that match, that basically visited your site. Maybe they even visited that page. And then you're continuing to show them that same message as they go. So that's sort of like my mini lead magnet funnel that has worked for me really well. So let me just show you kind of a real-time look at this. So this is our blog, but you know, it could be your blog just as well. It's just a WordPress blog. So, and you'll see a lot of things that are relevant to the slide. So I do always put this sort of opt-in at the top on the sidebar, but as I'm scrolling, you'll notice now here's the actual opt-ins directly in the middle of the content. And then as I scroll down, one goes away, but another one pops up on the bottom. And again, that cushion is usually like a 300 to 400 word cushion. And then you notice there's a lot of content on the page. It doesn't feel like it's too much, but it's always there. And then as I go, I always try to end on a lead magnet too. In this case, you'll notice there's two things being promoted. There's the guide, which is relevant to the content. And then there's also the newsletter. And so that's sort of MSPs, I feel like, have less success with newsletters. I understand that. So you might not want to just promote the newsletter. However, if somebody's downloading the guide or whatever you're offering or doing the cyber score, you're putting them on the newsletter. That's the point. You know what I mean? So they're going to get on it anyway. Maybe that's not the carrot that you dangle, but that's the goal, no matter what it is. And so the question now becomes, how do we actually do this? I just switched tabs. Can you see that I switched tabs? I just want to confirm. Okay. So I actually, well, here, let me show you this. I use a tool called Hustle Pro. I don't recommend you use it. The only reason I use it, and I've used it for a long time, is because it's part of like these developer tools and I use all of them. So I get it for free. The one that I've seen MSPs use a lot is called Opt-in Monster. And you'll see these icons right here are a lot of the things you just saw on that slide. And so essentially, if you have WordPress, or even if you don't have WordPress, you can still use this, but it essentially allows you to just very easily, no code, deploy exactly the things that we talked about and I showed you, just sort of building it through the platform. And if you use WordPress, that building can happen on the back end of WordPress. If you don't use WordPress, they have you just install this little, like, I guess like a little JavaScript snippet, and then you can sort of build it on their platform in the back end. And what's great about using a tool like this is that, like, if you use MailChimp or use Active Campaign or Keep or whatever, right? Or if you're a Tech Tribe member, you use Growably. Well, they won't have obviously a Growably integration, but they might have a Go High Level integration, which I believe is the same platform. So anyway, these integrations are ready to go for you. So like I use MailChimp, I can just turn that on, and now those leads are just flowing directly into MailChimp. I don't have to think about it. I can choose the tags to add right on there. So I can say, hey, they're downloading this. Maybe you had a legal lead magnet. I'm going to tag that legal. I'm going to put that in. Now I know that lead actually came from that lead magnet specifically. So that's essentially the rundown. I'd love to take questions. I know that's probably a lot, but I know probably a lot of you are at different phases of this. So it'd be helpful to just get a feel for where you're at, what you're looking at, and what you're trying to accomplish.
I think I love that you shared Opt-in Monster. Part of our knowledge lodge is trying to get the tools, like our recommended tools, together. So that's gonna be our opt-in recommendation, because I think we used the Elementor one, like the built-in one.
Yeah, I think just a built-in one. That sounds better.
Yeah,
I
so
took a
we're
note of
probably
it
gonna
immediately.
change that too, because we use Elementor. It's like, it's simple, but it's not as good. And it still does the integration with the CRM and stuff, but like OptiMonster just seems more robust. So like, thank you for actually giving us a specific tool. And two, I think people oftentimes don't do lead magnets because they find it complicated. But you just showed how easy it is. It's like you literally just like add it into the content. It could be the service page, it could be the industry page, it could be a blog, and you add it throughout the content. And when they fill it in, they get tagged appropriately. And you're already an MSP. Everyone here is an MSP camp, so you can grab the email campaign for that tag, law, accounting, etc. And when they get tagged that, not only are they going to get your monthly newsletter, they're going to get that weekly nurturing of that specific vertical. And so, and you have the lead magnets already. We can make, you can just put in a mock-up, super easy. You use OptiMonster or something similar. The whole process is very easy. And I think that is one thing Kevin's really been able to show us over the last months is just how simple the process is. So let's open it up for questions for Kevin before we kind of move into Steven's training.
I put in chat a question. Or do you just want me to say it out loud?
You can say it.
So,
go ahead, Steven.
Yeah, well, my question was two-faced, right? One is it always the same magnet, on whatever page you're looking at? Or do you rotate the magnets, on the same page? And then how often do you swap them out?
Those are very great questions. So think of it, number one, if you have something that's working well on a specific placement, I gave the example of you have your legal industry page, you have a lead magnet that is framed for the legal industry, and now you have those two things sort of stacked on top of each other. You don't want to now take another lead magnet and say, do something completely different. Maybe your exit intent pop-up is for like awareness training, right? Or something that is so like specific and irrelevant to the experience that the user had. So these can fit well together if there are multiple of them, if they are framed in the same way of, this is who I'm talking to, this is what they care about. Maybe they're not going for this, but they'll go for that, right? You don't want to give them too many options, but I think one or two is a solid start. Most MSPs have trouble just coming up with one good one, right? So if you have multiple, that's a good problem to have. I would only swap them out if you feel like it could do better. So if you don't have any leads, and you can actually look and verify that there was traffic to that page, because this is sometimes what I run into too, is people will say, oh, it doesn't work. But then you look and it's like, no one even saw the page that it's on. There's been like 7 visitors over 3 months. It's like, of course it didn't work. No one saw it, So if you can verify that you've gotten legitimate traffic to that page and that it's not working. And when I say legitimate traffic, I mean, you have to have had at least 100 visitors. If you don't, because these things, usually they convert somewhere, like some placements will convert at like another 0.5%. Some will convert like 2%, 3%. And so, but what's nice is when you start stacking them on top of each other, those numbers it's an addition, right? So in total, you might have 7 different options for where they can opt in, and each one of them converts at maybe 0.25% and 1%, whatever, and then you add that all up and then you can get to 4 or 5%. So that's the goal, is you're actually stacking all of that on top of each other. And that's why I say it's hard to have too many, because a lot of times you'll add one and the total conversion just sort of goes up. It's just, and it only has to convert at 0.25% or whatever to get a nice little bump.
So with that said, you're recommending then that the lead magnets tie directly to the page, right? So if it's a legal page, you want a lead magnet that is specifically tied to that vertical or that service that you're selling. So, you know, I'm going to tell my marketing company, MSP Camp, that, you know, for the different pages or for the different services that I want pre-built lead magnets that are for, you know, that are complementary services or complementary things to whatever the content is that's being read. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. And I would say I would start that process with the pages that are getting the most traffic.
Okay.
And then I would end that process with the pages getting the least traffic. I would
Yeah,
say
sorry, Kevin.
there's one thing that I'll say that we all know your primary call to action, almost all of you, is some sort of contact us or free consultation, right? That is always the case. There is one way to really screw this up, which is to over optimize for the lead magnets and not for that. So that should always be visible. That's always your primary call to action. What lead magnets do is they sort of help to sweep up everybody else that sort of falls through that initial, you know, conversion that they would have just left. Now they have another option. They have something else to grab at and take home with them so that they're more like, now you can start talking to them. So the one area that I think you want to make sure of is that you don't overdo it to the point where it's not even clear how to contact you and how to get a free consultation or how to do the thing that you're hoping them to do the most.
Yeah, like I'll show an example real quick. Dang it. Did this just freeze? Sorry. So like this is Alan's site that we just built recently. And for every industry page he has, you know, obviously we want excellent content. Obviously we want the let's connect. Obviously we have the connect with us, but we also have keeping your legal firm competitive through technology, right? And then if you go to accounting, we're going to have an accounting, secure your accounting firm, right? So like just an additional opportunity to capture on each industry page. So yeah, Steve, we got you. But yeah, that's just an example, you know, and some we're still updating, but architecture, we're building that one now. So just kind of where we put them in the site. And I'm thinking about adding them in another place on this page as well. Now I'm hearing Kevin. So just an example.
And that's a great example because you can see that let's connect button is static, right? It stays there. That's your primary call to action. It always will be. You know, you can call it whatever you want, but that doesn't really go away. It's just that these new opportunities sort of pop up as they're proven to be more engaged in what they're consuming.
I have another example recently. So it's amazing what call to actions on the site will do to the psychology of the person visiting your site. So our entire call to action at MSP Camp is sign up. That's it. And we realize, you know, hey, we're probably missing a bunch of people that want to learn more before they sign up. So we still had the sign up button, but we added a book a demo a couple weeks ago. Maddie was busy as hell doing 3 to 4 demos a day. We weren't getting 3 or 4 signups a day, but we're getting 3 or 4 demos a day. But signups slowed down. So we're getting a lot more demos, signups slowed down. And so we had to close the demos. And Maddie's not a salesperson, right? So I took the demo back off the site because it was overcrowding my main call to action. And we don't have a salesperson yet. And I'm just not really ready to put that kind of sales effort in at the moment. I'm more, let's just keep building something great and let people convert if they want to convert. But eventually we'll have to do the book a demo thing again and actually put emphasis on closing the demos. Does all that make sense? So that's an example of how sometimes there are things that can crowd out your main call to action. In our case, it makes way more sense to at least have something for them to download, because we do have salespeople, or we are salespeople. We're willing to go and work and close that deal, because the MRR on that is $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month versus $97 a month, right? There's a difference. There's a reason I can't put too much emphasis on closing a sale. Whereas in the MSP space, we can put a lot of emphasis on closing the sale. So I just wanted to kind of, another thing recently around call to actions on sites. Any other questions for Kevin? Anything at all? Just gonna give it a little bit more time.
Thanks for sharing, Kevin. It's very helpful. Really appreciate what you had to say.
My pleasure. And I'm also, I have access to MSP Camp as well. And so you can message me in there if you want.
Yes.
Like if you say, hey, you want somebody to like look at your site, or, you know, just give my opinion. I'm happy to do it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I should also mention, I don't sell services or anything. So I'm not, feel free to, I will legitimately give you my, my take, and with nothing else attached to it.
Kevin is
Awesome.
a true go-giver. I keep trying to be like, we got to make you money though, man. But he's like, no, I just love it. Now I do pay Kevin for some stuff, but he never asked for it.
See you, Barrett.
All right, bye, Barrett. Well, Barrett's actually saying bye before he leaves.
And a peace sign.
Oh.
He cares.
Kevin,
There
really
is a,
appreciate you, man. Kevin, the legend.
question for you. So
Tony's-
you had mentioned Growably, through the Tech Tribe, which I'm using, and last week participated in a week-long hour a day session to learn how to do direct mail and set up the lead magnet and all of that. And so some of the functionality in that I saw in the opt-in monster. I'm assuming that the monster has capabilities. It would be like Growably functionality on steroids. So what's for starting, because I'm just starting out in that realm. I've got a landing page, direct mails going out next week. Would you recommend just learning on that, getting comfortable with it before adding in something like this, or taking the jump and starting at the beginning with something like that?
I need to come up with a good sort of MSP technology analogy for this, but you'll find that a lot of these features exist in your CRM or your marketing platform, but Opt-in Monster is sort of a module that just contains all of these features, but like you could get these anywhere, and you're probably, all of you, if you're paying, are probably paying in some way to have these features right now. So now your decision is just how and where do I use them? So probably in Growably, Growably is Growably controlling your entire website, or just some part of your website, your landing pages?
Yeah, just landing pages.
Just landing pages. Okay. So probably you have the ability to do this, but only on those specific landing pages, if I had to guess, unless there's a snippet that is installed on your main site to where you can then push these same, widgets or modules, whatever you want to call them, to the main site as well. And so I would almost, what's great is you have access to Growably. I actually think starting there is great, because you'll at least get to learn a little bit in sort of a controlled sandbox of like how to deploy these things, how to do it on a certain landing page, and plus you're not paying anything additional for it. So I think that would be a great means of just experimentation for you to get a feel for what they are, how they work, assuming that you are getting some traffic to the Growably landing pages to be able to tell if they even work or not. Then that will help you better understand and how to sort of take it to the next level. The opt-in monster option is if you want one tool to be able to deploy all of these. And that tool is not your CRM. It's not your marketing automation tool. You're not going to send email newsletters from it or build landing pages from it. You're only going to use it for forms and these sort of like opt-in modules, right? For lead magnets. So just like, you know, with technology, sometimes there's the right tool, sometimes there's a tool that you can get by with. That's what you're dealing with here. There's one tool that can do all of it and just that. And then there's other tools that have some of these features that you can certainly use. I would work with what you have now that you're already paying for to learn and experiment, and then maybe consider doing this sort of like, you know, now I'm going to go all in. I'm going to get the tool, and then I'm going to go from there.
So start out with the Harbor Freight.
Exactly. The Pittsburgh brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like you would have to get a third party like Zapier or something to do an integration with Go High Level and Opt-in Monster. I was just poking around looking.
Yeah, that's likely. I've never, like, I don't,
Yeah.
Go High Level is an agency platform. And so people build Growably's and other things on it. So I don't know exactly how, if there's an integration there, but there's certainly duplicate features. I think what's most important is if you use Growably, where does that feature set end? And then are you looking to go beyond that?
And a lot of people are already using Zapier. So
Yeah,
so.
Taher has seen some of my zaps.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. He's like, this is how we can just get their email because it goes to this app and then there's data enrichment and you get all of the information, you know where they live. I'm like, what? It's wild. I love it. And that's the kind of stuff I really struggle with, which is why it's so good to have Stevens that make everything look beautiful and Kevin's that can understand the back end of a CRM and how to get everything. Because it's like all of us can't be good at everything. So we have to lean on good people. All right, cool. Well, Kevin, as always, you're a legend. If you're willing to stick around, that'd be great. But if you got to go, that's cool too. No worries. Kevin's going to be getting really involved. He already has been behind the scenes, but he's going to be getting really involved with some trainings, helping us with our pain points and opportunities. We're actually all going to be doing a third series. So we've got Q&A, we got this. We're going to have a third series on campaign brainstormings for certain verticals. So those are only going to be relevant if it's like, yes, this is my main vertical and I want to show up to this campaign brainstorming, and he's going to help us with those too. So we got a lot of cool stuff coming just for to continue to build out content with Kevin. So thanks, Kevin. You're the man.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. I'll stick around.
Awesome, man. Woo.